"Sir, I'm afraid this establishment isn't for people like you." The words from Bartholomew Wicksher echoed through the gleaming showroom of Manchester Premium Motors with cutting precision. Tyson Fury, still wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt from his morning training session, stopped in the middle of the salon surrounded by gleaming Ferraris and Bentleys. It was 2:30 p.m. on Friday, July 4, 2025, a day that nobody present would ever forget. The heavyweight boxing champion had driven his modest 2006 Volkswagen Passat to the prestigious dealership, intending to find a special surprise for his wife, Paris. Fresh from family holidays following his recent bout with Usyk, Fury was in good spirits, looking forward to celebrating their anniversary with something meaningful. However, from the moment he stepped through the polished glass doors, the reception had been distinctly frosty. Bartholomew Wicksher, the dealership manager, was a man who prided himself on reading people within seconds of meeting them. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, and possessed of an upper-class accent that he wielded like a weapon, Wicksher had built his career on catering exclusively to Manchester's financial elite. In his narrow worldview, appearances were everything, and Tyson Fury's casual attire and unremarkable car immediately placed him in the category of time waster. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a misunderstanding," Wicksher continued, his voice dripping with condescension as he adjusted his gold-rimmed spectacles. "Our vehicles start at 80,000, and I rather suspect you might be more comfortable at one of the mainstream dealerships down the road." Fury looked around the showroom, taking in the hostile atmosphere that had descended upon his arrival. Other staff members had suddenly found urgent tasks to attend to, deliberately avoiding eye contact. The few customers present, wealthy-looking individuals in expensive suits, watched the interaction with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed amusement. "I'm just looking for something special for my wife," Fury said calmly, his Morecambe accent soft but clear. "It's our anniversary, and I wanted to surprise her with something nice." Wicksher's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "I'm sure your intentions are admirable, but frankly, we don't have anything in your price range. Perhaps you could try the used car lot across town. They might have something more suitable." From behind the reception desk, Millicent Hargreaves watched the exchange with growing horror. At 23, she was relatively new to the dealership, but had always been a passionate boxing fan. The moment Tyson Fury had walked through the door, her heart had started racing with excitement. She recognized the distinctive 6'9" frame, the gentle manner that contrasted so sharply with his fearsome reputation in the ring, and most tellingly, the small scar above his right eye from countless battles. But Millicent found herself frozen by workplace hierarchy and the fear of contradicting her superior. She watched as her hero was treated with contempt by people who clearly had no idea they were in the presence of one of Britain's most beloved sporting figures. "Look, mate," Fury said, his voice still patient but with a subtle edge creeping in, "I'm not here to cause any trouble. I've got the money to buy whatever car I want. I just want to look around and see what you've got." Wicksher's face reddened slightly. The casual use of mate particularly grated on him, representing everything he despised about what he considered the lower classes. "Money isn't everything, sir. We have a reputation to maintain here. Our clientele expects a certain standard." From the workshop area, Reginald Thornfield, a veteran mechanic in his 50s, had heard the commotion and wandered closer to investigate. Unlike the sales staff, Reginald spent his days working with his hands, fixing the exotic engines that powered the dealership's inventory. He had little patience for pretension, and even less for bullying. When he caught sight of the tall figure being harassed by Wicksher, recognition dawned immediately. "Bloody hell," he muttered under his breath, too quietly for anyone else to hear. "That's Tyson Fury." But Reginald, like Millicent, found himself hesitating to intervene. He was just a mechanic, after all, and challenging the sales manager could cost him his job. Instead, he continued to watch, hoping that someone with more authority would recognize the situation for what it was. Near the Bentley display, Cornelius Pemberton, a property developer who had been pontificating to Prudence Ashworth about his latest acquisition for the better part of an hour, noticed the disturbance and decided to involve himself. Pemberton was the kind of man who enjoyed feeling superior to others, and the opportunity to publicly align himself with the establishment against an obvious outsider was too tempting to resist. "I say, Bartholomew," Pemberton called out in his plummy accent, "is there some sort of problem? I do hope we're not going to have any unpleasantness." Wicksher preened at the support from such an important customer. Nothing we can't handle, Mr. Pemberton. Just someone who seems to have wandered into the wrong establishment. Fury felt the familiar sting of discrimination that he had experienced throughout his life. As a member of the traveling community, he had faced prejudice countless times, but it never became easier to bear. The assumption that his appearance somehow determined his worth was a wound that never fully healed. Right then, Fury said quietly, his patience finally beginning to wear thin. I think I understand the situation here. The showroom had grown noticeably quieter, with staff and customers alike sensing that something significant was unfolding. Millicent gripped the edge of her desk, knowing that she was witnessing something that would haunt her if she didn't find the courage to act. Reginald stepped a little closer, ready to speak up if the situation escalated further. Wickshire, feeling emboldened by what he perceived as victory, decided to press his advantage. I'm glad we understand each other. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have genuine customers to attend to. The dismissal hung in the air like a challenge, and for a moment, the entire showroom held its breath, waiting to see how the encounter would resolve itself. Cornelius Pemberton, sensing an opportunity to curry favor with the management while demonstrating his social superiority, stepped forward with the swagger of a man accustomed to having his opinions matter. At 55, Pemberton had built his property empire through a combination of shrewd investments and an uncanny ability to read social hierarchies. In his expensive Savile Row suit and Italian leather shoes, he embodied everything that Wickshire aspired to be. You know, Bartholomew, Pemberton said loudly enough for everyone in the showroom to hear, I do appreciate establishments that maintain proper standards. It's so refreshing to find a business that understands the importance of appropriate clientele. His words were carefully chosen to sound reasonable while delivering maximum insult. Pemberton had perfected this technique over decades of business dealings, knowing exactly how to wound while maintaining plausible deniability. Fury stood perfectly still, his boxing training having taught him the value of controlling his initial reactions. He had faced far more dangerous opponents than these pompous salesmen, but the casual cruelty of their behavior struck him more deeply than any physical blow could. This wasn't about him, he realized. This was about how they treated anyone they deemed beneath their notice. Absolutely right, Mr. Pemberton, Wickshire agreed, his confidence growing with each moment. We've worked very hard to cultivate the right atmosphere here. We simply can't have it disrupted by individuals who don't understand the culture we've established. Prudence Ashworth, who had been selling luxury cars for 15 years, watched the interaction with growing unease. She had witnessed her share of snobbery in the industry, but something about this particular encounter felt different. The quiet dignity of the man being harassed reminded her of her own father, a humble electrician who had saved for months to buy her mother a modest anniversary gift. Perhaps we should just let the gentleman browse, Prudence suggested tentatively, her professional instincts warning her that they might be making a serious mistake. After all, it doesn't cost anything to be polite. Wickshire shot her a withering glare. Prudence, I think I'm quite capable of managing my own showroom, thank you. We have paying customers to consider. From her position at the reception desk, Millicent Hargreaves felt her hands trembling with suppressed anger and frustration. She had grown up in a working-class family in Salford, and her father had instilled in her a deep respect for treating everyone with basic human dignity. Watching her boxing hero being humiliated by these privileged bullies was almost physically painful. The internal struggle between keeping her job and doing what was right intensified with each passing moment. She thought about her university loans, her rent payments, and the precarious nature of her employment. But she also thought about the values her parents had taught her and the shame she would feel if she remained silent. Reginald Thornfield, meanwhile, had moved closer to the main showroom, ostensibly to check on a Jaguar that was scheduled for maintenance, but actually to better position himself for whatever was about to unfold. As a veteran of the automotive industry, he had seen countless interactions between sales staff and customers, but this level of naked prejudice made his stomach turn. Listen, son, Reginald called out to Wickshire, unable to remain silent any longer. Maybe you should reconsider your approach here. Sometimes things aren't quite what they seem. But Wickshire was too caught up in his own performance to pay attention to a mere mechanic. He was playing to his audience now, demonstrating his authority and social awareness for the benefit of customers like Pemberton. I think I know how to handle this situation, Reginald, Wickshire replied dismissively. Perhaps you should return to the workshop where you belong. The casual cruelty of the remark, delivered with the same tone used to dismiss Fury, revealed the true nature of Wickshire's character. He wasn't just prejudiced against customers he deemed unworthy. He maintained a rigid hierarchy that kept everyone in what he considered their proper place. Fury observed this exchange with growing understanding. This wasn't really about him at all. It was about a system that allowed certain people to feel superior by diminishing others. He had encountered this mentality countless times throughout his career, from boxing promoters who underestimated him to journalists who focused on his background rather than his achievements. You know what?" Fury said finally, his voice carrying a quiet intensity that made everyone in the showroom pay attention. "I think I'm starting to understand exactly what kind of establishment this is." Pemberton, sensing that the situation might be getting out of hand, decided to escalate his involvement. "I do hope you're not going to cause a scene," he said to Fury with theatrical concern. "We're all trying to conduct business here in a civilized manner." "Civilized," Fury repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "That's an interesting choice of words." The tension in the showroom was now palpable. Other customers had stopped pretending to examine cars and were openly watching the confrontation. A few had discreetly pulled out their phones, sensing that they might be witnessing something significant, though none of them recognized the tall man at the center of the drama. Wickshire, feeling the weight of attention and desperate to maintain control of the situation, decided that the time for subtlety had passed. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises immediately. Your presence is disrupting our other customers, and frankly, you're making everyone uncomfortable." The ultimatum hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Fury looked around the showroom, taking in the faces watching him, some hostile, some uncomfortable, some curious. He thought about his wife Paris waiting at home, and the simple desire to surprise her with something special that had brought him here. But he also thought about every person who had ever been made to feel small by someone with temporary authority, every individual who had been judged by their appearance rather than their character, every dreamer who had been told they didn't belong in spaces they had every right to occupy. Millicent Hargreaves gripped her desk so tightly, her knuckles turned white. The moment of truth was approaching, and she knew that her response would define not just this interaction, but the kind of person she chose to be. The silence in the Manchester Premium Motors showroom stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap at any moment. Tyson Fury stood surrounded by luxury cars, worth more than most people's houses, facing a choice that would define not just this moment, but potentially influence how this story would be remembered by everyone present. Millicent Hargreaves could no longer contain herself. The combination of witnessing her hero being mistreated and seeing the ugly display of prejudice from her colleagues had pushed her past her breaking point. Her hands were shaking as she stood up from her desk, but her voice was clear and strong when she finally spoke. "Excuse me, Mr. Wickshire," she said, her Salford accent cutting through the tension like a blade, "but I think you need to know exactly who you're speaking to." Every head in the showroom turned towards her, Wickshire's face flushed with anger at being interrupted by his most junior employee, especially in front of valued customers like Pemberton. "Millicent, I suggest you return to your duties immediately," he snapped. "This conversation doesn't concern you." But Millicent had crossed the Rubicon. There was no going back now, and honestly, she didn't want to. "This is Tyson Fury," she announced, her voice growing stronger with each word. "He's the heavyweight champion of the world. He's worth over £140 million, and you've just spent the last 20 minutes treating him like dirt because he didn't dress up to buy a car." The effect was immediate and electric. Reginald Thornfield emerged fully from the workshop area, a broad grin spreading across his weathered face as he began clapping slowly. "About bloody time someone said it," he declared. "That's exactly who he is." Prudence Ashworth felt her stomach drop as the full implications hit her. She had just witnessed her manager potentially cost the dealership the biggest sale in its history, while she stood by and said nothing meaningful to stop it. The commission alone, on whatever Fury might have purchased, would have paid her mortgage for months. Cornelius Pemberton, meanwhile, had gone completely pale. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers and quickly searched for images of Tyson Fury. When the results loaded, showing the unmistakable face of the man he had just insulted, he actually staggered backwards against a pristine Bentley. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Oh my God, what have we done?" But it was Bartholomew Wickshire who provided the most dramatic reaction. His carefully cultivated composure crumbled entirely as the reality of his situation crashed down upon him. He had just insulted, dismissed, and attempted to eject one of Britain's most famous and beloved sporting figures, a man whose story of overcoming mental health struggles and achieving greatness had inspired millions. "Mr. Fury," Wickshire stammered, his upper-class accent faltering as panic set in. I had no idea. I mean, obviously, if I had known. This is all just a terrible misunderstanding." Fury watched the transformation with fascination rather than satisfaction. In the space of 30 seconds, these people had revealed the hollow nature of their supposed principles. Their respect, it turned out, was entirely conditional on his fame and wealth rather than his basic humanity. "So let me understand this," Fury said, his voice carrying a dangerous quietness that every boxer recognized as the calm before the storm. "When you thought I was just some ordinary bloke from down the road, I wasn't good enough to be in your showroom. But now that you know I'm famous, suddenly I'm welcome?" The question hung in the air like an accusation, which is exactly what it was. Several customers had now begun recording with their phones, sensing that they were witnessing something that would soon be all over social media. "It's not like that at all," Wiksha protested, but his words rang hollow even to himself. "We simply have procedures, protocols for customer service." "Tyson, protocols that involve judging people by their clothes and their cars," Fury interrupted. "Protocols that let you treat human beings like they're beneath your notice?" Pemberton, desperate to distance himself from the disaster he had helped create, stepped forward with his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Mr. Fury, please accept my sincerest apologies. I spoke completely out of turn. I had no right to say what I said." Fury turned his attention to Pemberton with the same unsettling calm. "And what exactly did you say, Mr. Pemberton?" "Cornelius Pemberton. And I made some very inappropriate comments about standards and appropriate clientele. I was completely wrong, and I deeply regret my words." The heavyweight champion nodded slowly, as if filing away this information for future reference. Then he looked around the showroom, taking in all the faces watching him, some hopeful, some terrified, all waiting to see how he would respond to this moment of absolute power over their reputations and possibly their livelihoods. "You know what the really sad thing is?" Fury said finally, his voice carrying a profound disappointment that cut deeper than any anger could have. "I came in here excited to buy my wife something special for our anniversary. I was in a brilliant mood, looking forward to surprising her, and instead I got a masterclass in how some people think it's acceptable to treat their fellow human beings." Millicent stepped closer, emboldened by having already taken her stand. "Mr. Fury, I want you to know that not everyone here shares those attitudes. Some of us actually admire what you represent, overcoming adversity, staying true to your roots, treating everyone with respect regardless of their background." Fury's expression softened as he looked at the young woman who had found the courage to speak truth to power. "What's your name, love?" "Millicent Hargreaves, sir, and I'm a huge fan of yours. Have been since you beat Wilder the first time." "Well, Millicent Hargreaves," Fury said with a genuine smile, "you've shown more class and character in the last 5 minutes than some people show in a lifetime. Your parents raised you right." The comment brought tears to Millicent's eyes, but they were tears of pride rather than sadness. She had risked her job to do what was right, and her hero had noticed. Wiksha, meanwhile, was experiencing something approaching a complete nervous breakdown. The potential consequences of his actions were mounting by the second: viral social media posts, negative publicity for the dealership, possible termination of his employment, and the loss of what could have been the sale of the decade. "Mr. Fury," he pleaded, "please let me make this right. Anything you want, any car in the showroom, I'll personally ensure you receive our absolute best service. We can arrange VIP treatment, private viewing, whatever you prefer." Fury studied the man who had attempted to humiliate him just minutes earlier, now groveling for forgiveness. The transformation was complete and utterly revealing. This was what happened when people realized that their prejudices had real consequences. But what Tyson Fury did next would surprise everyone in the showroom, including himself. Instead of accepting Wiksha's desperate offer or launching into a tirade about the treatment he had received, Fury did something completely unexpected. He walked slowly to the center of the showroom, his imposing frame commanding attention from every corner of the space. When he spoke, his voice was measured, thoughtful, and completely free of the anger that everyone expected. "You know what, Bartholomew?" he said, using the manager's first name with deliberate familiarity. "I'm not angry with you. I'm disappointed, but I'm not angry, because this whole situation has taught me something important about the kind of world we're living in." The showroom remained frozen in anticipation. Phones continued recording, capturing every word for what would inevitably become a viral moment. But Fury seemed oblivious to the cameras, focused entirely on the human drama unfolding before him. "When I walked in here today," he continued, "I was just a man trying to buy his wife a present. I wasn't the heavyweight champion of the world. I wasn't worth hundreds of millions of pounds. I was just Tyson from Morecambe, looking for something special for the woman I love. And in that moment, when I was just an ordinary person, I wasn't welcome here. Prudence Ashworth found herself nodding involuntarily. The simple truth of his words cut through all the justifications and excuses that had been building in her mind. But the moment you learned about my fame and my money, Fury went on, suddenly I became worthy of your respect. The same man wearing the same clothes with the same intentions became acceptable because of what you thought I could do for your bottom line. Wicksha tried to interrupt, but Fury held up a hand that commanded silence with the authority of someone accustomed to controlling rooms full of people. That tells me everything I need to know about your character, mate. And more importantly, it tells me everything I need to know about how you treat people who don't have the luxury of fame to protect them from your prejudices. The weight of his words settled over the showroom like a heavy blanket. Several customers looked genuinely ashamed, realizing that they had been complicit in the discrimination through their silence. Reginald Thornfield stepped forward, his weathered face showing deep respect for the way Fury was handling the situation. Mr. Fury, I just want to say that not everyone here agrees with what happened. Some of us were raised to judge people by their actions, not their appearance. Fury turned to the mechanic with a warm smile. I can see that, Reginald, and I appreciate you speaking up, even though it could have cost you your job. That takes real courage. Then he looked directly at Millicent, who was still standing beside her desk, with tears of pride in her eyes. And you, young lady, showed more integrity in 5 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. You risked everything to stand up for what was right, even when it would have been easier to stay silent. It wasn't right what they were doing, Millicent said, her voice stronger now. My dad always taught me that how we treat people when we think nobody important is watching is who we really are. Your dad sounds like a wise man, Fury replied, and he raised a daughter he can be proud of. The emotional weight of the moment was becoming overwhelming for everyone present. Pemberton had slumped into a chair near the Bentley display, his phone forgotten in his lap, as he contemplated the viral video that would undoubtedly ruin his social standing. Other customers shuffled uncomfortably, wondering if their own behavior would be scrutinized in the aftermath. But Fury wasn't finished. He turned back to Wicksha, who was now visibly sweating despite the air conditioning. Here's what's going to happen, Bartholomew, he said with calm authority. I'm going to buy a car today, not because you've suddenly decided to treat me with respect, but because I came here with a purpose, and I'm not going to let your ignorance stop me from surprising my wife. Wicksha's relief was palpable, but Fury held up his hand again. However, he continued, I'm not buying it from you. Millicent is going to handle the sale, and she's going to get the full commission. Consider it a reward for having the courage to do what's right when it mattered most. The young woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. The commission on a luxury car sale could be several £1,000s, more money than she typically made in months. And Reginald, Fury added, turning to the mechanic, I want you to personally oversee the preparation of whatever vehicle I choose. I trust that it will receive the care and attention that reflects your character, rather than the character of this establishment's management. The mechanic straightened with pride. It would be my honor, Mr. Fury. Fury then walked slowly around the showroom, examining the vehicles with the eye of someone who genuinely appreciated fine engineering. He paused at a stunning Range Rover autobiography, running his hand along its sleek lines. This one, he announced. Paris will love the color, and it's practical for our family. Millicent, shall we discuss the details? As Millicent practically floated over to begin the sales process, Fury pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Within minutes, he had arranged for the full purchase price to be transferred. No financing needed, no credit checks required. The ease with which he handled the transaction worth over $100,000 served as a final reminder of exactly how wrong Wicksha's initial assessment had been. The videos of the encounter began circulating on social media within hours, with hashtags like Tyson Fury Class and Jung True Champion trending worldwide. But the real impact was felt in the showroom itself, where a lesson about dignity, respect, and the true meaning of character had been delivered with the kind of grace that only comes from someone who has faced real adversity and emerged stronger for it. As Fury signed the final paperwork, he looked around the showroom one last time. You know, he said to no one in particular, I hope this whole experience teaches everyone something valuable, because at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to make our way in the world, and the measure of a person isn't what they own or how they dress. It's how they treat others when they think nobody important is watching. With that, the heavyweight champion of the world walked out of Manchester Premium Motors, leaving behind a showroom full of people who would never forget the day they learned what true class really looked like.